we do it.
Yeah, me clean, everybody know this. Mummy cause small man what this time. But me know what this, mummy just watch this. I did brand new dance, me a teach it. If you a girl, just smile and show you them bro. Kiddie them know all the thing go. No. Brand new dance, it's simple. Tear it dirt, show them the thing now. Dirt, dirt, dirt. Everybody get your bunks, watch ya. Dirt, dirt.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
3 schoolboy footballers at Dintil Technical High School have been sanctioned by the Inter-Secondary School Sports Association for their role in the assault of a referee at the end of a Costa Cup game between their school and McGrath recently in St. Catherine. We're inviting the ISSA president, Keith Wellington, and we've also invited a member of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica to talk about the range of sanctions and to talk about what else should be done, ought to be done in this situation, because it was an act of violence, wanton violence, but there were minors involved. It's a delicate balancing act. Lead Story takes on a sports theme on this Friday. Let's start the show. Welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV. My name is George Davis. Now, in case you missed it recently, the Costa Cup game between McGrath High and Dintil Technical at the McGrath field ended in total disorder as players from Dintil Technical attacked the referee at the end of the game, which finished 1-1, obviously incensed by how they saw the referee's adjudication of the game over the course of regulation time. And words were said to the referee, and when the referee reacted by flashing a red card to signal the dismissal of one of the players, yes, that can happen even after the game has been signaled as being over. The player was incensed, colleagues were incensed, the referees were put into a safe place, into a classroom. The room was barricaded by the players, their supporters, and all hell broke loose. The police had to be called in to ensure that the referees could get safe passage, referee and his assistants could get safe passage away from the scene. And so we find it necessary to investigate a little bit more what really went down and what informed these sanctions that were handed down. There's a package that we should have. There's a reader that we should have to give you to also play the footage of what happened in that incident. And can we share the footage now? All right, there is no footage. Should we go straight to our guest then? All right, let us see the press release. So ISSA sent a statement and pretty much saying that the 2 other players were banned from participating for a year. Another player suspended for 3 the Costa Cup games, and Dintil, the school, placed on a 3-year probation. And of course, this probation means that if you record any infraction within the period of probation, you are liable to be kicked out of the competition for a period to be determined. And ISSA used the opportunity to remind the stakeholders of its commitment to ensuring that all student athletes display the requisite decorum befitting their status as ambassadors of schools and various competitions in which they compete. Is also strongly condemning acts of indiscipline, any and all, and acts of physical aggression and assault on any match official for any of its activities. As I said, Keith Wellington, the ISSA president, is lined up to speak with us. And Mr. Stuart Jacobs, he's the president of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica. Are the gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to Lead Story on CVM TV.
Hey, good evening, George. Good evening, Stuart. Good evening to the viewers.
Thank you, Sir Keith. Stuart Jacobs, are you there? Not hearing Stuart Jacobs yet. All right, let's crack on with Keith Wellington. Mr. President, for those who came in late, just recap what it is that ISSA is told as happened at McGrath's field after that the Costa Cup game.
All right, so I assume they would have come in after you spoke, because you gave a very good synopsis of what took place. There was a game last Saturday at McGrath where after the completion of the 90 minutes, the referee, the central referee, a player approached the central referee and said some choice words, I understand, to the referee, who in turn issued a red card to the player. And based on the referee's report, the player then turned around and physically attacked him, pushing him in his face, or let me just say physically attacked him.
Yes.
Another player joined in the melee. The players were restrained by other members from the intel, and the match officials were later taken to a secure location on the McGrath campus. However, allegations are that a number of the intel players presented themselves in the vicinity where the match officials. So essentially, that's...
Yes. That's what happened. All right, hold the line for us, Keith. We're going to try to connect Stuart Jacobs, and then we advance the discussion looking at the sanctions that ISSA laid out and where from here for the players involved and, of course, for the school, Dintle Technical. More on Lead Story after these.
Culture. Yo!
New beginning, we winning, so share our spirit where you living, yeah.
Share it!
I make we all a one bar, you don't know we come from far.
From far, anytime we rep we country, rear rum, it have to come with me.
No matter with the bad vibes,
poor rear rum, a celebration time. Rear rum,
I feel we culture.
Rear rum,
make we show ya. Jamaican culture.
and if you overproof from we just a do it to we culture.
We a big deal when we touch the ground. Yeah, a KFC when we pulling up. Anything for the taste of a KFC, big deal. The time by KFC is...
Juicy, crunchy, irresistible taste of a KFC big deal, some people will do anything. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Name a place, PJ, that older women go to find young men.
The hospital.
What?
Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV. I have with me the ISSA president, Keith Wellington, and trying to line up the president of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica, Stuart Jacobs. First thing I want to ask you, Keith Wellington, I was a bit perturbed by the fact that ISSA took this step. I know that ISSA is usually a very judicious organization. I was rather perturbed by the fact that ISSA named the boys involved in that sanction statement that it sent to the media. May I ask why, sir?
All right. So first of all, I have heard that question. These are 18-year-old boys, by the way, and I think generally it was public knowledge, including the school, in a previous statement. That has been public knowledge. Sometimes we don't name the students in cases like this, but on other occasions we have had to name the students.
So you're saying that. So the fact you're saying that these are 18-year-olds involved, legally, or a child under 18, and the fact that the school and other entities had communicated about their names, you felt that there was no need to hold on to it from ISSA's perspective.
Right. And bearing in mind as well that the accusation, first of all, the accusations were public, the incident was public knowledge, and we needed to make sure, because we also wanted to make sure that all the parties that were guilty or culpable in the matter have been identified. So if you notice, for example, there's one name that we didn't get, the school has taken action against that person. So the gravity of the situation was such that I am sure that there may be cases where we have not gotten the full story, or we wanted to make sure that we have been able to find, wherever possible, the persons who are culpable in like this. Because I think that this is, I've been watching schoolboy football since the 80s, and I can't recall players actually physically assaulting much of them.
Right. So you're saying the gravity of the situation is also one of the key factors in identifying the boys by name?
Right.
Okay, all right. I would say, though, that, yes, I take the point of them being 18. I also take the point that this is a very, very grave situation. And I have no issue with ISSA handing down the sanctions that are on paper. But I would say to you that part of the sanctions say a ban for what? For 2 years from ISSA competitions, is that correct?
One year.
For 1 year, okay. So, which means that they are still eligible by age and the fact that they are still in school. So I would wonder about the fact of protecting them there. But you've made the case.
Not all of them are eligible to play again.
Okay.
I think this is it for 12.
Last go. All right, fine. Let that's settled. All right. So the sanctions now, Keith Wellington, give me an idea as to why the disciplinary committee went this way. There is a lot of talk outside of ISSA that the sanctions should have been even more severe, while some people say, well, why punish them so severely? I want to get an idea if the disciplinary committee followed any sort of rubric for the punishment handed down.
All right, so first of all, let me establish that I was not a member of the disciplinary committee, and in terms of ISSA and due process, in terms of how it works, there is a right to appeal from the entail, and if that appeal is to come, it will be heard by the executive, of which I will be a part. But I am going to have to be very careful as to how I speak to the specifics in this matter, right? But generally, for us at ISSA, we have a range of sanctions ranging from a reprimand to a ban of the entity itself, not just the players, but the school itself may have been banned. When we look at the situation in terms of banning of the institution, we normally restrict banning where we find there's administrative or management culpability in a particular instance. So, for example, where there may be submission of false documents, or we find that the management team would not have done anything or would have encouraged breaches in our rules. So that would not have been possible. Well, based on what I know, I think that may have been a stretch to have banned the institution. In terms of the sanctions that we actually got to, would have been based on the evidence that were provided, and a large part of that evidence would have been the submission from the referee's report, along with any other witnesses that we would have had, as well as any mitigating circumstances that would have been provided by the school and the students in question.
So to be clear, it's not as if you yourself said that as a watcher of schoolboy football since the 80s, you can't recall an incident like this one. So it's not as if there was a precedent against which the disciplinary panel or committee made its ruling.
No, there was no precedence. As far as I'm aware, there has been no precedence for an incident of this nature. So we are aware of spectators or other persons involved abusing the referees, many times verbally, not necessarily physically, but none where a student has physically assaulted a match official.
After the break, Keith Wellington, I want to ask you about the opportunity that now presents itself for ISSA to do the kind of relations with stakeholders that can prevent this, and to let every other boy or girl in other ISSA competitions know that the organization is deadly serious about the maintenance of discipline. And I also want to ask about the school and what the school can do to assist these boys, because clearly they're on a path to self-destruction, and it is our role, your role as an educator and as a part of ISSA, to try to arrest a youngster going in the wrong direction. I want to ask you about those things after this break. This is Lead Story here on CVM TV.
As a fitness guy, I was surprised by my chronic illness diagnosis. I thought working out harder would fix it, but it wasn't enough. Now, my prescription meds are a part of my routine.
When I got my diagnosis, I really felt down and stopped spending time with the people I love. Then I decided not to let any disease get the best of me. And I'm committed to taking my meds as prescribed. On time, every time.
No hesitation. Take your medication. A message from the NHF. NHF is here for health. NHF is here for you.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
Ray and Never, feel we culture. Yo! New beginning, we winning, so share our spirit where you living, yeah.
Share it.
I make we all a one bar, you don't know we come from far.
Papa, anytime we rep, feel we country. Rear rum, it have to come with me.
No matter with the bad vibes.
Poor rear rum, a celebration time. Rear rum.
I feel we culture.
Rear rum.
Make we show ya Jamaican culture.
Ray and Never, you overproof from we just have to do we culture.
As a fitness guy, I was surprised by my chronic illness diagnosis. I thought working out harder would fix it, but it wasn't enough. Now, my prescription meds are a part of my routine.
When I got my diagnosis, I really felt down and stopped spending time with the people I love. Then I decided not to let any disease get the best of me. And I'm committed to taking my meds as prescribed. On time, every time.
No hesitation. Take your medication. A message from the NHF. NHF is here for health. NHF is here for you.
In case you came in late, Dintil Technical in the news because a few of their players at the end of the Costa Cup game against McGrath at McGrath's field last Saturday were involved in unsavory scenes, attacking the referee. Referee had to be locked away in a room and then escorted off the premises by police because the players and some supporters were adamant that they want to mete out physical punishment to the referee, all because at the end of the game he flashed a red card to one of the players that incensed the player. A couple of his colleagues came and they roughed up the referee, and really unsavory scenes, and ISSA has come down hard. We have the ISSA president with us, Keith Wellington. We were trying but unsuccessful in locating Stuart Jacobs. He was traveling and the connection was not stable, so we've decided to abandon it for the name in the name of the show. Keith Wellington, question though, Mr. President. Why did it take, according to reports, close to an hour for the players to be removed, for the referees rather, to be removed from the room they were reportedly barricading in, when police personnel ought to be staples at football games? And so, by the time the match was called to a halt, the police conceivably couldn't have left the venue at the time. So why would it have taken so long for the gentlemen under the gun, so to speak, to have been given relief?
I'm not sure. From the reports that I read, it did not take an hour. But let me establish that the reports that I read, and that would have included the referee's report, it did not take an hour. But I'm assuming that based on what would have transpired, the police would also have been occupied in ensuring that there was order on the killing post in the vicinity of what was taking place. And, you know, maybe that was why it took so long. But I'm told that there was police presence at the match. It was just a matter of maybe ensuring that they prioritize their enough discipline.
All right. So from here, Mr. President, ISSA has this opportunity now. I know you had a few lines in the press release talking about the zero tolerance approach to acts of indiscipline of that kind and reminding players that they're ambassadors of the game. But this presents you with an opportunity to make a statement to players in this competition, Manning under Costa Cup, and of course the other ISSA-run competitions to be played over the course of the school year. How will you capitalize on this opportunity now in a society that's becoming increasingly violent?
I'm happy that you have framed the question in that context, George, because that was something I mentioned with my colleagues yesterday, as a matter of fact, about the fact that, you know, we just saw an incident with what, 12-year-olds, and the sort of violence they are comfortable displaying. But for us at ISSA, one of the things that our mission statement speaks to providing wholesome sporting opportunities and provides the opportunity for kids to be properly socialized. And therefore, if we simply go back to our mission statement and focus on why we offer these competitions, why as principals we spend so much time, so much resources into ensuring that these competitions take place, then I think that it will not be lost on us that we need to find a way to help our colleagues to ensure that the teams, the players that are involved in our competitions are reflective of the type of society that we want for our Jamaica, because that is why we have these competitions. We want these competitions not just unearth talent that will be competitive on the field of play, but gentlemen and ladies that are reflective of the type of persons that we want our Jamaicans to be. And, I can tell you that we have concerns. We genuinely have concerns about where the emphasis is placed in providing teams opportunities for the various school teams. I think much of the emphasis is on winning and not necessarily spending enough time on ensuring that these kids are properly socialized and understand what opportunities being provided to them and the responsibility they have to ensure that their schools, which are brands and therefore need to be protected, the image of these schools. I would want to think that as principals, all of us want to ensure that our schools are seen as model institutions where the best of Jamaica is produced.
Yeah.
So we have been having these discussions. Obviously, as you said, this is also an opportunity for us to reinforce what our mission is, and also to find opportunities for helping not just those everybody generally, but some of the students like these obviously have gone astray. As a principal, I shudder to think that any student wearing a state's uniform would believe that it would be okay to behave in that way.
Yeah. The sad part for me, President, was seeing the behavior of the boys being encouraged by adults in these stands who ran to help them harangue the referee. And I'm wondering, and I know hindsight is 2020, but I know that you are a man of discipline. Why is it that ISSA didn't take the opportunity, and you say you're not part of the disciplinary committee, but to cause Dintil Technical to sit out school competitions for a year? Because this is the only thing, well, there are several things worse that could have happened than what happened on Saturday, but this is among the worst of the worst. Why was that opportunity not taken to come down hard on the school, rather than a probation, a suspension of sorts, just to drive home the point that you have to control those who represent you on the sporting field, and that those adults who come to watch them and encourage them also are mindful that it's discipline above all else? I felt that there was an opportunity missed there, President.
Yeah, and as I said earlier on the show, George, for us to have suspended a school or any school at all, one of the considerations the first consideration we take into mind is whether or not the school was delinquent in doing any administrative or management duty that would have resulted in a breach of our regulations. In this case, as we have pointed out, this was something happening where a number of the players went rogue on an instant, right, and created mayhem. We wanted to identify all individual players. If there were 15 players involved, we probably would have banned the 15 players, and maybe then we could have said to Dintil that you have lost control of your team, therefore go back to the drawing board, put in place proper management structures, and ensure that this doesn't happen again. But in this case, we never had, we have not been able to identify that number of students. And we also would have to bear in mind that the opportunity would get no taken from kids who had nothing.
Yeah, who behave themselves. Yeah, right. That's true. That's true. Lastly, President, do you contemplate, perhaps not even in this specific situation, but going forward, boys like the ones involved, that some form of reverse role modeling could be used by ISSA to have these boys, since they are still in school, you take them around certain places, use them as examples to say, listen, gentlemen, part of the reformation process, you're going to be a part of our mentorship, telling people in ISSA competitions not to behave out of line, to toe the line of discipline, to put competition first and make the spirit of competition supreme. I'm suggesting that that's something that ISSA could probably take on to help the boys, save them from themselves, and to also use them in this positive way. What say you?
George, I'm laughing. One, because I agree that we need to ensure that there is some action taken to ensure that these young men are reformed and that they understand that this is something that is not acceptable, and we do things from a school level and maybe from a ISSA level to ensure that there's something positive out of this. I'm smiling though because I know that there have been a few instances lately where persons who have been convicted have appeared elsewhere and we do not necessarily accept a message. So we have to be careful.
Yes,
we have to be careful.
But the only thing is, those persons are adults who are free to come and go as they please. These boys are under the charge of a school, and
we'll work with them privately for the
yes,
time being.
but it could be. I take the point. It could be that you say to them that, look, graduation is coming up. You're completing your high schooling. There are things that you will need from here for later in life. Perhaps it is that you need to complete a series of steps with a reformation, disciplinary mentorship program in order to qualify and matriculate to leave Dintil properly. So I'm just throwing that into the mix, even as I take the point that you've made about controversial figures.
I really agree that it's a teaching moment, and it is, as schools, these are some of the things that we should be tasked with. We should ensure that it is done, because ultimately these kids are going to be a reflection of our product. They are going to be what we produce or who we produce, and it is going to have an impact on where we go as a society. It's nice and good that we praise our kids who do well academically and who go out and do well, but how about those that we have not been able to reach? What impact are they having on us, and what could we have done to make them better? So I think that, yes, this is something that has happened publicly, and it is an opportunity to use these kids as samples of what the schools and the organizations like us can do to help create a better Jamaica.
Correct, it is, because the ones who are errant are the ones who need our help more, because the ones who are on the good path, they're already set right. It's the ones who are wayward, who we need to invest our energy in bringing back on the right path. Keith Wellington, I want to thank you for your time as usual, and wish you and your fellow principals at ISSA all the best in this competition and the others that you administer.
Thank you very much, George. Thanks for having me.
Good. Keith Wellington there. He is the principal of St. Elizabeth Technical High School and the man in charge of ISSA. Well, as I've said to Keith, I think that the chance is here. Say to these schoolboys, look, you will matriculate to graduate from Dintil Technical